Story fun. A few years ago, I relocated to a small rural community. I grew up in a fairly large city and was never really cut out for that kind of life. It was loud and chaotic around the clock. As soon as I was old enough and could afford it, I moved away. The town I settled in is incredibly small. The surrounding forests and mountains are gorgeous, no matter what time of year it is. It almost surprises me that this little town isn't more of a tourist destination in the summer and fall. The quiet place doesn't have much. A few restaurants, a couple of bars, a gas station that also does repairs, one supermarket, a small police station, and that's about it. Even the nearest Walmart is like an hour away. My little slice of paradise is really off the grid, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I've been living here for over 3 years now, and apart from one terrible day, it's been wonderful. But even peaceful towns can sometimes hide dark secrets. When I first arrived, I picked up a part-time job at the local supermarket. I used to manage one of the grocery chains back in my hometown, so I had plenty of experience. I'd go in first thing in the morning to unload trucks and stock shelves. The owner offered me a management position, but I turned it down. I only wanted to work part-time, basically to have some extra spending money and an excuse to get out of the house. I also have an online part-time job that makes up the bulk of my income. I wanted as much free time as I could manage so I could hike and fish as often as possible. There's so much woodland in this area that it would take a lifetime to explore it all. Of course, I'm up for the challenge. So every day off, rain or shine, I'd find a new area to hike and head into the woods for the entire day. It didn't take long for me to settle into this new routine. Almost immediately after moving to town, I started hitting the trails and trying to get to know the locals. At night, I'd grab a bite to eat in town, and I quickly learned that everyone in the area was unexpectedly friendly. Everyone except one person. I'm talking about a man named Hector. I should clarify that Hector wasn't mean or rude. He was just strange, like from another planet strange. The first time I met him, I was arriving at work a little after 500 in the morning, and he ran up to my car window as I was getting out. Where I'm from, if someone does that, you punch them before they can hit you. But not here. I threw my hands up defensively and started yelling at him. He screamed right in my face and then skipped away. Legitimately skipped. As I stood there completely bewildered, one of my coworkers came up and told me his name was Hector, and he was harmless. Apparently, he'd lived in or near town for a long time, but nobody knew exactly where. Everyone assumed he was homeless and probably living under a bridge somewhere. They just left him alone and let him wander because he wasn't hurting anyone. It was alarming to have him scream in my face, but if everyone in town said he was harmless, I just went along with it. For the next few weeks, I saw Hector everywhere. It didn't matter if I was going to work at the crack of dawn or leaving the bar after 1100. He'd be wandering the streets. He was a short guy but strong-looking, built like an ox. He couldn't have been taller than 5'3". He always wore a stained white tank top and royal blue pants. I couldn't tell if they were jeans or sweatpants. He had a long, dirty gray beard, and his hair was in a ponytail, even though he was bald on top. But even with the strange appearance, the most notable thing about Hector was the skipping. Every time you saw him moving, he'd skip. His blissful ignorance was almost enviable sometimes. One morning on my way to work, I saw Hector standing on a corner facing away from my car. As I approached the intersection, I saw him waving at someone. When I passed, I could see he wasn't waving at anyone. He was talking animatedly to nobody. I just kept driving and minded my own business. Honestly, it's not that unusual for someone in Hector's situation to talk to themselves. especially if they're not a danger to themselves or others. I couldn't care less what he was doing. That next weekend, I hit the woods on my day off. I spent a few hours hiking a part of the forest I hadn't explored yet. While I was deep in the woods, I thought I heard a voice echoing through the trees. Hearing any kind of voice that far out is alarming. Remember, this wasn't like a trail you'd find at a park. This was pure wilderness. Any voice would make you feel uneasy. I know it sounds sketchy, but I wanted to find the source. Instead of retreating, I started moving toward the voices slowly. As I got closer, I could tell one of them sounded distressed. I grabbed my pocket knife, just in case, and crept as quietly as I could. The voices were just behind a thick cluster of trees directly in front of me. When I peeked through, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It wasn't multiple voices. It was just Hector. He was talking to himself and changing his voice. One voice was angry and belittling, calling him a coward and other unpleasant things. Then, like a switch flipped, the angry voice started weeping, begging for forgiveness. What was most terrifying was how completely different each voice sounded. I decided to stay hidden behind the tree. I wasn't about to engage with him. While I was hiding, the angry voice returned, and without even looking, he screamed. His hiding behind the tree. This time you can't let him get away. I watched Hector get up and look directly at me through the trees. For the first time since I'd met him, I saw genuine rage in his eyes. I stepped back, trying to process what was happening. I didn't have long. Hector charged at me screaming. He wasn't skipping anymore, he was sprinting, and he was much faster than I expected. I ran back toward where I'd started the hike. For a while, I could hear him right on my tail, screaming that I wasn't going to leave the forest alive. He'd laugh and then scream every few minutes. It sounded like he was right behind me about to grab me, but he never did. Eventually, I didn't hear anything anymore. I finally made it back to my starting point and instantly ducked down, scanning the woods. Hector was nowhere to be found. I went straight to the local police station and told the sheriff everything. She almost didn't believe me. She couldn't imagine Hector acting with that kind of rage. When I described roughly where in the woods I'd been, she went pale. She couldn't believe Hector was out there, for starters. It was several hours of hiking into the woods. But that wasn't even the most disturbing part. Right around that area, she told me, they'd found the remains of a local man years ago. It had been disturbing and saddening for the whole community. They never found out who did it, and it was one of the only dark marks on an otherwise peaceful town. She started wondering if Hector might have been involved. She tried to remember exactly when Hector first appeared in town. Her memory was fuzzy, but she was pretty sure he showed up around the time they found the remains. She asked if I could take her to the exact location so she could bring Hector in for questioning. At the very least, she wanted to know why he attacked me, and if it was safe for him to still be wandering around. We basically ran to the area in the woods, but Hector was gone. The sheriff, now retired, got emotional because this was almost the exact same spot where they'd found the remains all those years ago. They never caught Hector. Nobody in town ever saw him again. It was like he just vanished into the woods that day. I still go hiking every chance I get, and every time I do, I half expect Hector to jump out of the trees and keep chasing me. I always carry my knife just in case. Sometimes even the most harmless looking people can cause the most damage. I don't know if Hector was responsible for that horrible crime, but after seeing him in the woods, it wouldn't surprise me. I remember asking why Hector was never questioned when they found the remains, and nobody could really give me a solid answer. Now that I've lived here a few years, I assume it's because these people just aren't equipped to deal with crimes of that magnitude. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing there wasn't a lengthy investigation. After writing this and reliving it, I still can't quite believe it happened. It still feels so real to me. My advice to anyone who hears this is to always pay attention. You never know what evil might be hiding inside someone, even someone as harmless and seemingly happy as Hector appeared to be. Story 2. I'm writing this story while it's still fresh in my mind. My girlfriend Katie and I just got back from what was supposed to be a multi-day hiking trip. The reason I'm putting this down is that I'm not exactly sure what happened to us. The more I think about it, the more I spiral down a rabbit hole of insane thoughts. 3 days ago, we started this long, planned hike in the mountains of upstate New York. Anyone familiar with that area knows how beautiful it is. When people outside New York State think of New York, they usually only picture the city. But there's so much more to this state. I'd argue the nature here is vastly underrated. Our planned trip was supposed to last 4 days and 3 nights. A chance to get off the grid and just be alone with each other and nature. We love hiking and being outdoors. We've trekked forests and mountains all over the country, so this wasn't anything out of the ordinary. The first day went smoothly. Other than some patches of rain, we didn't have any issues. We set up the tent, ate some food, and turned in early so we could get a head start the next morning. During the night, I woke up and noticed Katie sitting up. She looked scared, which was out of character for her. I asked if she was okay, and she stumbled over her words at first. Eventually, she told me she'd heard something outside the tent, something that freaked her out. Initially, I thought it might have been an animal like a deer, since they're everywhere up here, but that wouldn't have scared her that badly. I told her I'd take a look, and as I reached for the zipper, she gasped and grabbed my hand, begging me not to open it. I still had my hand on the zipper, looking at her, trying to figure out what could have scared her so much. I figured she might have had a bad dream and was still half asleep. While I was trying to decide what to do, I watched Katie freeze. This time, I heard it too. Outside the tent, I swear I could hear someone walking around. We both sat quietly listening to the footsteps circling the tent. The way they sounded, it was clearly not an animal. Whoever it was just kept walking around, and every couple of minutes, the person would giggle. A high-pitched laugh. Neither of us knew what to do. It may have been stupid, but we decided the best course of action was to stay put until dawn and hope whoever was out there would leave. I'm not sure how long they stayed, but eventually the walking stopped. For a few hours, we heard nothing but the quiet forest, usually our favorite sound, but that night it had us on edge. At dawn, I slowly left the tent. Thankfully, we were alone. I felt relief for about 5 seconds. As soon as I fully stepped out, I noticed strange rocks scattered all over our campsite. Rocks I knew weren't there the night before. They were stacked and arranged in odd patterns. Katie was ready to pack up and go home, but the idiot that I am convinced her to continue with our planned hike. The previous night was horrible, but I was confident it had to be someone messing with us. I couldn't come up with any other rational explanation. The entire next day, Katie kept looking over her shoulder, convinced we were being followed. Every time I stopped and looked around, I didn't see anything. We only hiked half the day. Katie was done, and I didn't blame her. We set up camp and got ready for the evening. Katie begged me to head back tomorrow. If we left at dawn and basically jogged, we could most likely cover all the ground from the last day and a half. The whole point of these hikes is to enjoy them, and she wasn't enjoying herself. That night, I was sure she wouldn't be able to sleep. I was wrong. She must have been exhausted. She passed out as soon as her head hit the pillow. It took me a while, but I finally started getting sleepy. Just as I was about to drift off, I heard a whisper. It jolted me awake. I looked next to me to see if Katie had said something, but she was still out cold. Then I heard the whisper again, a soft female voice saying, "Come outside, Arty." I couldn't believe I'd just heard my name. Then another woman's voice said, "Yeah, Arty, please come outside. We're waiting." I didn't react. I just sat completely still. Katie was still asleep, and I didn't know if I should wake her and cause a panic or just ignore it like the previous night. They didn't whisper anymore, but I could hear them running around the tent. Not walking this time, running. To make things worse, they started laughing uncontrollably, these high-pitched cackles that were the worst sound I've ever heard. During the laughter, one voice got much deeper and louder and shouted, "Come outside now." With all the noise, Katie woke up. She instantly panicked and wanted to know what was going on. I can't imagine how disoriented she must have been waking up to screaming and laughing outside the tent. I didn't even have a few seconds to explain before the women outside started messing with the tent. Leaning into the sides, pulling it, somehow moving us a little bit. Through all the chaos, they kept laughing. I had no idea what to do. This was way beyond anything I'd ever dealt with. I was scared, and Katie was horrified. Then, in an instant, we heard several footsteps running away into the woods. It went quiet again. For 30 minutes, Katie and I just stared at each other without saying a word. Neither of us knew what had just happened or how to deal with it. After 30 minutes of silence, I decided to unzip the tent just enough to see if we were alone. I slowly unzipped it while Katie squeezed my arm. Standing about 20 feet from the tent was an image that will be burned into my mind forever. A young woman in her 20s, staring right at me, smiling like she'd been waiting for me to open the tent. She was wearing a white dress, which was crazy considering we were in the woods in the middle of the night. She waved at me. I zipped the tent back up and sat there speechless. Katie had looked over my shoulder and seen her too. Her reaction was the same. For the rest of the night, we sat holding each other, expecting the woman to charge the tent at any moment. But nothing happened. At dawn, I slowly unzipped the tent again. She was gone. Just like the previous morning, there were rocks scattered around in strange formations, along with sticks tied into symbols I didn't recognize. And neither did Katie. Trust me, I know how this sounds, and I can't believe it either. It's like something out of a nightmare. We packed up, left all the rocks and sticks behind, and practically sprinted out of those woods. It took less than a day to make it back to the car. We drove back to our apartment in near silence. I told her that as soon as I got home, I was writing the story down and sharing it. As much as we love the woods, I'm in no hurry to go back, especially not those woods. The logical explanation is still that someone was just messing with us. But I don't know why anyone would go through that much effort for a joke. It seems insane. Any other conclusion makes me question everything I know. This felt sinister. I mean, how the hell did she know my name? I hope we can move past this. It makes me think maybe monsters really do exist. Story 3. I thought about sharing this story several times over the years. I've been sitting on it for a while. I don't talk about it much. I guess the main reason is that I struggle to fully explain what happened. Every year since we graduated high school, my friends Theo and Carlos, along with me, would spend a weekend in the woods. Something we still do today, even though we're all married now. It's a tradition we started. No matter where life takes us, We always get together at least once and spend quality time. When we were kids, we loved exploring. We trekked the woods in our hometown, and one thing we were obsessed with was caves. We found one when we were 16, and as we got older, we'd go further out searching for them. That was our thing. Over the years, I think we've only found 3 or 4. As we got older, our trips were more about friendship than exploring. Our little expeditions were safe, and the biggest risk was wildlife, which was never an issue for us. One day on one of our trips, we stumbled across a cabin in the middle of nowhere. We approached it like every fool in every horror movie, featuring a rundown cabin in the woods. We were even joking about being in a horror movie cliché. We looked through the windows. Clearly the place was abandoned, almost empty except for some destroyed furniture. Carlos wanted to go inside. We didn't disagree. Going in may seem like a hell no moment for some, but honestly, it's not that weird. We'd seen crazy things in the woods over the years. One time we found a huge clearing with a creepy makeshift village of small huts and piles of debris everywhere. Scary at first, but we later learned it was once living quarters for a traveling circus that had been in the area decades ago. So weird stuff in the woods isn't new to us. A clearly abandoned cabin wouldn't send me running. It was more unexpected than anything. We loved finding things like this and getting to the bottom of whatever we discovered. Inside the cabin, I started asking myself questions. First, why was there a cabin so far out? It's a stretch to call it a cabin, really. It was more like a large shed built from wood, but cabin is easier. The whole thing was one room with no plumbing, no electricity, and no roads leading to it. The air felt dry, almost hard to breathe. Carlos picked through the broken furniture, but there wasn't much to investigate since it was just a square room. While we stood there talking, we kept hearing a weird sound we couldn't identify. Something dragging in the dirt, coming from underneath us. The cabin didn't have a basement, at least not one we could see. I put my ear to the floor. Unmistakably, it was coming from under the floorboards. I started kicking away debris, and in the far left corner under some dust and junk was a rusted handle in the ground. I had to see what was underneath. I lifted the door, and the smell was almost unbearable, like rotten meat. I grabbed a bandana from my backpack and wrapped it around my nose. It didn't fix the issue, but made it more manageable. Before descending, I tried looking to see what was making the noise, but it was too dark. The noise was louder now, and I was 100% sure it was coming from down there. As I climbed down, I noticed how unnaturally cold it was, like a basement, but way worse. I shone my flashlight around. The ground was stones, and the only things I could see were 2 giant structural beams on each side. Carlos and Theo asked if I saw what was making the noise. Before I could say no, a normal-looking guy limped out from behind one of the beams. Green t-shirt, jeans, clean-shaven, messy dark hair. The moment he appeared, I yelped. It startled me so badly I couldn't even scream properly. But the man didn't acknowledge me at all. He just kept limping from left to right, dragging his foot. That was the sound. He didn't seem well. He was breathing heavily, mumbling something under his breath, clearly not English. I shouted, asking if he was okay. Carlos yelled at me to shut up and leave him alone. Theo came halfway down the ladder, saw him, and went right back up. I moved closer, and the man stopped limping. He turned just his head to look at me, then the rest of his body. He wasn't mumbling or breathing heavily anymore. He just stood there. I started backing toward the ladder. He didn't move. When I grabbed the ladder, he took a single step toward me and stopped again. Everything about this was terrible. I climbed up as fast as I could and told Carlos and Theo we needed to leave. Whoever was down there was not well, and I was pretty sure he could be dangerous. We looked down one last time. He was standing at the base of the ladder, staring directly up at us. One hand on the ladder like he was considering climbing. I'll never forget those horrible, lifeless eyes staring straight at us. We all ran out of the cabin and just kept running. I remember thinking maybe the guy was in trouble and we just left him. But that thought didn't last long. I can't articulate why, but it just felt wrong. We reported the cabin and the man to the local authorities. They investigated but found nobody down there and no evidence anyone had been living in the cabin. They checked missing person reports, but no one matched the description. Even the police couldn't fully explain why the cabin was out there. I have no idea what we stumbled across that afternoon. Maybe we were the bad guys for breaking into that guy's cabin, but I don't think that's accurate. As much as I'd love to know what that man's true intentions were, I'm glad we didn't find out. My gut tells me we came across something evil, but my brain says that can't be true. We still get together every year to hike, but we're even more careful now. I promise you this. If we ever stumble across another cabin in the woods, I'm running in the opposite direction, as fast as I can. I never want to experience anything like that again.